Hey gang, I am Joe Edelman, and welcome to the Last Frame Live, the longest running weekly photography live stream on YouTube. You know the drill. If you're watching live, please leave me a note in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you're watching from. And listen, if you're watching the replay, I'm glad you're here. Please drop a comment below the video so that I know you caught the show. Already, I got Calvin here up in Maine, Nick's here down in Maryland, I got Jay in Southern Colorado, Robert is here in New Mexico, Joe in California, Lynn sneaking in here at the last second from New York, Lisa in South Florida, FN89's here from Washington State, and there's more people coming in here as we speak. Awesome. Thank you all. We got a busy night tonight. I want to get right into it. Here we go. I have got breaking news tonight, and let me tell you, this is awesome. Adobe needs 1,000 photos of bananas in real life situations so that it can make better fake bananas with AI. And here's the best part, they'll pay you $60. No joke. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You just can't, right? So here's the deal. Adobe wants 500 to 1,000 pictures to help Adobe Stock train its AI image generator. And they're actually requesting 3 different subjects. First, close-ups of mouths eating food. I'm sure you got a lot of that laying around, right? Second, close-ups of hands handling food. And then the bananas in real life situations. Now, for the close-ups of mouths and hands, Adobe is offering $80 per set. And for bananas in real life situations, they'll pay out a solid $60. So, you know, that leaves me wondering if I could create fake bananas in Midjourney or Dolly and submit them to Adobe. I mean, is that like inbreeding if you feed a fake banana to an AI that then creates a fake banana from the original fake banana? How's that work, right? I mean, I wonder. So just in case you missed the subtleties in the language, they're paying you $80 for a set of 500 to 1,000 photos of close-ups of, by the way, non-recognizable people eating food, or a whopping $60 for 500 to 1,000 photos of bananas in real life. So, I'm not kidding. This story, it was first reported by Matt Grokut, who's the senior news editor at Petapixel, and it's sourced from the German stock photographer Robert Noschka, who shared access to the request from Adobe. Now, before you get all excited and run into the kitchen to find a banana, this offer is only for photographers who are part of a select group of Adobe stock contributors with the goal of sourcing specific assets, that's Adobe's phrase, for machine learning training. I mean, wow. Just wow. As I've said before, AI is not the problem. People are the problem. In this situation, let's face it, it's the corporate greed and, honestly, insensitivity of Adobe colliding with people who will be dumb enough to answer the call and create 500 to 1,000 unique photos of bananas in real life situations. Go figure, right? All right. Also in news this week, in a less than stellar moment for Sony, the head of Imaging Products and Solutions, Marketing, that's a nice long title, at Sony Europe, Jan Lagenauer, acknowledged in an interview with LensVid that took place at the recent IBC show in Amsterdam that indeed there is a lack of after-purchase support for even the company's most expensive cameras. Now, just so we're all on the same page, after-purchase support, that equals firmware upgrades. Nikon and Canon regularly update their cameras with new features and options. In fact, since releasing its Z9, for example, Nikon has pushed out 4 major firmware updates that have significantly updated not only the performance of the flagship camera, but also the feature set. In fact, today, bird and airplane detection were added to the C9, which, by the way, that's a camera that's over a year old. The second update that Nikon had issued added more than 15 new features. Think about that, right? So after purchase upgrades, they send the message to consumers that their investment in the hardware isn't taken for granted. And I have to be honest with you, this is one of the features that I really enjoyed with my Olympus gear, because we routinely, after a camera would come out, would get updates that included new feature sets. Now, full disclosure, Sony does push out firmware updates, right? However, unfortunately, those firmware updates rarely amount to more than minor bug fixes or sometimes slight performance enhancements. Sony instead reserves all of these significant feature enhancements for brand new camera models that are released practically yearly. Lagenauer from Sony says that while the company can't respond directly to anything that's unreleased, in other words, in the pipeline yet to come, he says Sony is listening. Okay, well, in my opinion, just listening doesn't help the consumer. Sony users, I'm doing my part right now. You need to do yours. Sony users need to hold the company more accountable. For me, I'm going to keep talking about it, and I will tell you right now, I will only be upgrading camera bodies once I have a need due to a failed camera or when there is a significant benefit to my photography. You know that I currently use the A7 IV and the A7R IV, and I have not and will not be upgrading to the A7 Vs. I kind of look at Sony cameras like iPhones, and I don't upgrade my iPhone every year either. I just don't. It is a new month, and I have some new educational opportunities for you. So again, this weekend, I've talked about this one a couple times, and it's literally a few days away. If you are in the neighborhood of Williamsportt, Pennsylvania, home of the Little League World Series, this Saturday, I'll present 2 live in-person programs for the Susquehanna Valley Shutterbugs. The first one is Understanding Creativity, and the second one is Correct Exposure for Digital Cameras. Fee to attend the entire event is just $15. Registration is required. It's open to non-members of the club. The link, it's in the description below the video. Next week, on Tuesday, October 10th, I'm going to be presenting a program called Beautiful Portraits, the Psychology and Techniques. I routinely talk about the fact 80% of photographing people, it's psychology. 20% is the art and the science of photography. Cameras, lenses, lights, modifiers, remember, they're just tools. They're tools that photographers use, but these are not what makes a great beauty shot or portrait. Photographing people for any purpose, okay? It's a relationship game, and the gear has got to take a back seat to your interaction with the subject. All right, this is a 2-hour program that I'm going to be doing. It's interactive, it's live, it's presented via Zoom. Cost to attend is also $15, and all attendees receive a digital download with my prep information for photo shoots, along with a lot of the tips that I shared during the presentation, as well as email templates that I use with clients and models. Paid registration also gives you 72 hours after the program to watch it and or rewatch it if you can't make it live. The link also in the description below the video. Let's see, 2 weeks down the road, Thursday, October 19th, I am headed to an in-person event at the Villages, the famous Villages in Florida. I'll actually be there for 2 events. In the morning, I'm going to be holding a 3-hour workshop on abstract photography, and in the evening, I'll be presenting one of my favorite presentations, Understanding Creativity to Improve Your Photography. Both events are open to residents of the Villages for a small registration fee. Details can be found in the links in the description below the video. This week's featured photography quote comes to us from French photographer Christophe Agu, who is best known for his poetic and evocative black and white images of everyday life in New York City. The quote, "Looking and seeing are two different things. What matters most is the relationship with the subject." Could not agree more. Agu's work explores the themes of solitude, belonging, and relationships between human beings and their environment. Agu was also a co-founder of the In Public Collective, which is dedicated to street photography. As always, I have a link to his website in the description below the video. And I encourage you, spend some time there, read his bio, and study his images. I love his work. It's raw, and especially his street photography images, because he documents a brilliant balance between the chaos of everyday life in the city and often the uncomfortable reality of the human condition. So, trigger alert, if you're uncomfortable aiming a camera at random people that you don't personally know, these images could well trigger your anxiety. So, just in case you don't already follow me on Facebook, Twitter, X, or LinkedIn, or Threads, every day, Monday through Friday, I post a quote from a well-known photographer along with a link that will allow you to learn more about that photographer as well as see some of their work. And I'm excited to announce that you can now find these quotes on Instagram as well. I've created a profile at 80% Photography where they're also posted each day. If you're curious about that 80% Photography username, I actually gave you the key a few minutes ago. 80% of photographing people is psychology. 20% is the art and science of photography. So this channel is really dedicated to the thought process and the hows and whys behind making great photographs and has the goal of helping you learn about more photographers along the way. Okay, so just a reminder, all of you, yes, you're watching right now, you're part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries who tune in to watch The Last Frame every week. And you know what? It would help more people learn about The Last Frame if you could just do me a solid. Hit that thumbs up below the video. The more thumbs up, the more YouTube recommends the show to other photographers. All right, we have spent much of the last 3 episodes talking about black and white images and how to best create them. I've shared how I shoot them and how I process them. Hopefully, I have inspired and motivated you to go out and try a little bit more black and white. Now, there is one question that has come up several times that I haven't dealt with yet, and that is, what really is the best software for converting your images from color to black and white? So, the answer will frustrate some of you, and it will create relief for others. The best software is whatever you have available. Now, last week, I showed you my workflow in Photoshop, which uses ACR, Adobe Camera Raw. That's the same tool that Lightroom uses, right? But here's the thing. Almost every piece of processing software on the market, even phone apps and the default photo apps on your phones, can also do all of those black and white conversions with an impressive amount of control. So why would we even need to care about specialized software for converting color images to black and white? Well, there are 2 potential reasons. And the key word there is potential, okay? Bear with me just one sec here. I'm going to move my screen up one. There we go. And really what this means is you don't need to run out and get these pieces of software right away. But depending on your needs, they may benefit you in some situations. So the two reasons, let's start there. Number one, simply control, having more control over what you are able to do to the image while you are making the black and white conversion. And number two is simply creative inspiration, ideas, right? To kind of move you along and maybe educate you or inspire you as to what you can do with your images. So if we begin with control, we'll start there first. The hands down winner is Silver Effects, which is owned by DxO Labs from France. Silver Effects is a comprehensive set of darkroom inspired controls that are designed to give you complete control so that you can tweak every ounce of contrast, tone, gradient in your image, all with absolute precision, and ultimately create truly stunning monochromatic images. Now, we discussed last week that making a great black and white image is a lot more than just desaturating a color image, right? That was a big part of our conversation. Let me move that out of the way and let me just show you the interface here for Silver Effects. I'm not going to do a lot of work in it tonight. You're going to do some research afterwards. But here's what I will tell you. Nik Silver Effects uses, honestly, some rather unique algorithms and also a very extensive array of tools which mirror the things that you could do in a real film darkroom so that you have complete control over brightness, contrast, tones, and also how smooth those transitions are. If you've dabbled with black and white, depending on the software you're using and depending on the image, you also may certainly have run into the problem where you kind of get the banding because the gray tones don't transition really well. They have made that much easier, much more efficient, and much more effective. The biggest reason why that routinely happens actually has to do with the resources available on your computer. Certainly, there's things that software could do to make it better, and that's exactly what Nik has done. So Silver Effects also includes an extensive range of filters and effects that help you emulate the look and feel of 39 classic film emulsions, such as Kodak Tri-X film, my all-time favorite, Ilford Delta 100, Fuji Neopan, 39 of them. With Nik Silver Effects custom presets, which are what you see down the left-hand side of my screen here, you can manipulate your image's grain structure, the contrast characteristics, and literally you can recreate some of the world's most iconic black and white films. Along with the rest of the Nik collection, you can use Silver Effects as a standalone product, which will allow you to work with JPEGs or TIFFs, not RAW files, or you can access it as a plugin inside of Photoshop or Lightroom Classic. Now, the downside, if you want to call it this, I don't think it's a particularly big downside because I think they make great software, but Silver Effects is only available. In fact, let me go back to my browser here and bring that up. Silver Effects is only available as part of the complete Nik collection, which has a total of 8 powerful plugins, all for non-destructive editing in Photoshop, Lightroom, and I say Photoshop and Lightroom Classic because that's where I work, but also works in Photolab, which is a DxO product, and Affinity Photo. You can buy the entire set for $149, which when you look at the other tools that they have available, this is actually a very reasonable price to get the whole thing. And just to give you a little bit of history on this Nik stuff, the Nik collection was initially conceived and brought to the market in 1995. So it's been around for a while. This is not new software, right? Silver Effects Pro, which is no longer called Silver Effects Pro, but Silver Effects Pro was added to the lineup in 2008. So they've been doing this black and white processing since then. In 2012, Google purchased it, repackaged the software to create the Google Nick collection. DxO, the current owner, purchased the Nick collection and really kind of created a whole new chapter in this story by releasing the by DxO version in 2018. But that's not really the big news. The big news actually came this year, 2023. DxO has added a whole bunch of new tools across the entire collection. They've updated the interfaces, made the integrations with the various pieces of software work much more efficiently. They've created workflow improvements and a whole bunch of stuff, right? So moving on to the creative inspiration option, number 2 in my reasons why you might want to consider software of this type, I would recommend one of 2 pieces of software for creative inspiration. For advanced, more experienced photographers who are somewhat comfortable with post-processing, I would encourage you to go with Nik's Silver Effects. It does offer quite a few presets, as I mentioned, for film, but obviously you can manipulate to your taste with much more control. For beginning photographers looking for that creative inspiration, photographers that are still finding their style, exploring the creative possibilities of post-processing, Luminar Neo would be an excellent selection. And I make the recommendation with Neo based on 2 critical aspects of Neo's design. One, it features a very easy to understand interface that is indeed easier than Photoshop or Lightroom, and I would argue DxO and Affinity and GIMP, pretty much all of them, right? And it is undoubtedly easier than Silver Effects. But for creative inspiration, it also comes loaded with black and white presets, creative presets that are very easy to apply, basically one click. With a little bit of effort, you can experiment with them. Through the Luminar Marketplace, you can also add preset packs from other photographers that will help inform and influence your black and white style, right? So lots of potential growth there. Now, my usual warning about presets, right? Regardless of where they come from, doesn't matter. By all means, go ahead and use them. But please don't accept their results as is. Use it as a creative element and then adjust it, manipulate, experiment with it to make it your own. In other words, invest a little bit of time in yourself and in your images. You don't have to know exactly what all the sliders are going to do and what they're going to give you, but invest the time to change the sliders and experiment with it and see where it takes your image. Because I promise you, try this, but really commit to trying it. You can actually teach yourself a lot about photography and a lot about the potential of your photography by truly experimenting in post. But if you go the preset route, I say this frequently, please remember, stealing an idea is ultimately better than copying a result. Make that idea your own and your image is going to stand out. But mindlessly copying the work of others, it simply exposes you as lazy and lacking creativity. Think about those people that like to go out and overpower the sun at midday, that kind of stuff, right? So listen, also, I would love to see some of your favorite black and white images. You can share them in my Facebook group where we've got over 10,000 members from 100 different countries, or you can share them in my Tog Knowledge community, which is my exclusive mentoring community where you have direct access to me along with other photographers during weekly video meetings. Both communities are open to photographers of all skill levels and genres. I've got links to both of those communities in the description below the video. Our cover shot tonight, we are going to stick with the black and white theme, at least for the last week, right? As you saw, the cover shot is a black and white image. You also saw it in the Silver Effects Pro interface. So I'm going to start here, and I want to show you the color version of the image, right? So this is where we began. And in terms of how this shot was created, this is basically a one light shot. It is done with a beauty dish. On camera left, I do have a sock on the beauty dish. It's a 21-inch beauty dish, by the way. I do have a sock on the beauty dish, and I've got one reflector, a piece of white foam board below the model to put a little bit of fill in underneath her chin. What you don't see in the diagram or in this behind the scenes image here is that I have two fans working on this shot. Now, I'm not a big fan of using fans when I'm doing the blowing hair because it tends to be very unruly and a little bit chaotic. So I apologize that I don't have a picture that shows the fans, but so that you understand where they are, one fan is on the floor behind the model. It is aimed straight up, and it is blowing some of the hair in the back up and also blowing some hair forward. A second, much smaller fan is right below the camera, blowing at the model to mainly keep the hair off of the model's face. That was really the goal. You can see here, this was done with the Olympus EM1 Mark II, the 45mm f2.8 Pro lens, which, by the way, is a 90mm equivalent for you full-frame shooters. All of my settings are there, 250 to the second, 6.3, 200. And I was, of course, shooting tethered, so I was able to evaluate these images as I was shooting. I want to show you a little bit more in terms of when I shoot something like this. So if you, and obviously I know you'd love me to blow them up and let you see each one big. That's not the point here, so bear with me. As you look through this kind of contact sheet of images, you'll notice that it starts out with two test shots, which are literally just like mug shots, looking straight ahead to get the exposure dialed in, which never changes because I never moved the light at that point. But from there, it's all about working the shot, trying small variations. I start out actually doing a series of shots with her looking straight at the camera, and then with her head turned very, very slightly towards camera left, then bringing the head back towards camera right. At this point, the makeup artist has adjusted the hair. Again, always cleaning up the hair, make sure everything looks clean. Then as we get down 2 rows, I've got her facing back square to the camera again for another series, but this is where I start to introduce the fan. As we come through this middle row here, you'll notice that the fan is starting to push the hair back. In fact, let me just get my little circle there. There we go. So the hair is starting to push the hair back. The fan is starting to push the hair back. So we get a little bit of volume in it. And then in around here is where I start to add in the second fan. You can see the hair is starting to get crazy there and it's blowing in all directions. And then right after this, by the way, I did these really clean beauty shots. This is actually still part of working the shot. The makeup in that beauty shot at the end is the exact same makeup in the hair shots. All we did was slick her hair back. So we didn't actually have to go back to the beginning and redesign the makeup and do something crazy or interesting with the makeup. We worked with the exact same makeup look. We simply went ahead and did a major change with the hair. So some of my edits from that I pulled out, just to give you a little better look at some of the different variations that I did, and also to see a comparison of one in black and white. All of these work well as black and white images. And yes, I did a test before I got started in camera with my camera set on monochrome to see how this would look in black and white because I wanted that opportunity down the road. And I was a little bit torn as I was shooting it, simply because I imagined this series of images in black and white from the get-go. That was the plan. This young lady has very fair skin. The day that she came into my studio for the shoot, her skin was in great shape. And the foundation that my makeup artist used for the shoot it was just a wonderful set of tones that was reproducing really, really well with the lighting I had set up. It's kind of one of those happy accidents. It's not what I was planning for, not what I was expecting. But as I'm doing my test shots and I'm setting this up, it looks amazing in color. So I'm like, well, okay, I want to make sure that this image is going to work both ways, work in color and work in black and white. And so that's exactly what I did, was made sure that I set it up so that I would have that option for both, right? So, you know, finished images, you'll see some color versions here. You'll see some black and white versions here. Actually, if I go back one, this is one of the ones with two fans, one behind her. You can see how the hair in the back is blowing up, and then one in the front, which keeps pushing the hair back and keeps it off of her face. With this particular one here, what I actually did was move the fan in the front slightly to camera right. So it's aimed kind of across the frame. And then the fan in the back, moved it off to the side to camera left. So it's pushing the hair off the left side of the frame in the back. The fan in the front is pushing the hair off the right side of the frame to keep it off of her face, right? So we're always experimenting, always playing with what kind of shapes and interesting designs. And then the cover shot, as you see it here, the color version, which is actually the one that I wound up going with for my portfolio use, because those pale skin tones were just gorgeous. And then with her blue eyes, it just jumps and it really grabs you. So again, this is kind of a combination of everything happening here, right? We've got the fan in the back blowing up. We've got the fan in the front blowing forward. And it's aimed slightly to camera right so that it's not messing too much with the hair that's on her arm. Really, we are trying to keep that as crazy as possible, but still keep the hair off of her face. And then here, I'll switch back to my second display really quick so you can see. Here is that image in black and white. Makes for a great black and white conversion. This is the unretouched version. In fact, you know what I'll do? Let me do this just for everybody that's followed this along. I'm going to switch back here. All right, I'm back in Photoshop, and here is the file. So I've already done the raw processing, right? Let's work you through this part of the workflow one more time, right? So I showed you the Retouch For Me plugins. I'm going to go through, I'm going to use those on this really quick. First, we're going to do the healing tool, and we're going to, here, in fact, let's blow her face up so you guys can see it. You can see, whoops, I just moved that. Let me put the layer back where it belongs. There we go. Okay. Try this one more time. All right. Now you can see like how clean a job that does, but notice there is still texture. There are still pores, which are super, super important to me, right? From there, let me back out just one hit here. From there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the dodge and burn, which you'll notice is going to even out the skin tones a little bit more. It's going to put a slight hint of depth into the image here. I'm going to turn that off. In the layers palette, turn it back on. Subtle changes, especially under the eyes when you see it happen. From there, I am going to go ahead and do the eye vessels. This is the whites around the eyes. In fact, let's go ahead, blow this up so that you can see all the bloodshot lines that we have right here. So we'll see what it does. We're going to hit eye vessels. And again, this is AI, so it takes a few seconds in each image, but just to give you a sense of the cleanup, hasn't taken them out completely, reduced them dramatically. If I wasn't doing this live and in a hurry to walk you through it, I would spend a little bit more time with the healing tool and I would take those out. But that alone is a major change from where the image was. If this image was just going on social media, you'd never know the difference there, right? Her blue eyes are really jumping out at me, so I don't really think I need to do anything with brilliance. That would probably be overkill. So the last piece for me, let me back out a little bit here. I'm going to do portrait volumes because this is going to put a little bit more depth into her face. And there we go. So again, we'll take that off. You can see it's just adding a little bit more depth and contrast in all the right places. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create kind of like a snapshot layer there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to open this in, oh goodness. Oh, there it is. Sorry. We're going to open this in Silver Effects for you. So what you were looking at before was a JPEG version now. This is that retouched image that's coming in. This is a non-destructive edit that we can do here, right? So in fact, we can even switch it to a smart object so that when it goes back, we can edit right back into Silver Effects if we decide we've done too much or done too little. So, you know, at this point, I can look at my various settings, and this doesn't really need a whole lot. I'm just going to lighten the skin ever so slight over here with the brightness adjustments, with the goal being I want to get that pale skin as light as I can without losing detail. If I lose the detail, I've gone too far, right? For contrast, again, I never use a contrast slider. Never, 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 right? I'm going to do amplify blacks in this case and just give them a little bit of boost. I want to make sure that deep in the shadows down in here that I do get a nice pure black. And I mean, honestly, that's all this image needs. This image, again, as I was setting this up, I realized this is just going to be an awesome black and white image. If I wanted to add film grain, there's a couple things that I could do. I could look through, you know, some of the presets and I could see what they have available in here, or I can scroll down to the bottom over here and I've got the film grain section where I can go ahead and pick the film type. So here, I mentioned before that I like Kodak Tri-X. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to like what it does to this image. So don't be shocked when it looks bad. But there is, wow, actually, it's not doing much at all. I take that all back. Maybe that's why I liked it so much, because it looks just like Tri-X. But what I can adjust now is I can adjust the grain size, which is, you know, you notice you can start to see hints of it showing up in the cheek here in the shadows. If this was push process Tri-X, the grain would be considerably more. So if I really want a real film look, that's where I'm going to go with it, right? Lots and lots of tools here. In fact, I can even come in if I want to give this a whole kind of, actually, let's not do the burn. Let's do the image borders. We'll do that one. I'm going to turn image borders on, and you know, I can give it an old school printed technique where it's going to put the borders in there, select from different ones along the way, makes it look like it was sheet film, all that kind of stuff. So all of that is built into that. Like I tell you with many other pieces of software, Silver Effects is awesome. If you are looking for a piece of software, though, that is quick, easy, doesn't have much of a learning curve, that you can just kind of pick it up and start using it, Silver Effects is probably not your best choice. The beauty of Silver Effects is its power. So it's a piece of software that you're going to want to spend some time learning and really get involved with. If you're looking for something that's quick and easy but can still advance your creative potential with your images, then I would encourage you to definitely take a good look at Luminar Neo. Okay? All right. Just checking. Did you hit the thumbs up yet? If you're still watching, come on, you must be finding some value in the program. And by the way, just for those of you that are detractors, if you by chance really think that I'm wasting your time, you can go ahead and hit the thumbs down. It's okay. Honestly, it helps me either way, right? I'm just asking for your help to get the word out. All right? This week's DIY tip is brilliant, and I'm kind of bummed that I can't take the credit for it. It's not my tip. I found it online. I've never heard of this one before, and I gotta tell you, it's great. So the tip comes from Gabby Morgan Swain, who is a wedding and portrait photographer based in Springfield, Illinois. So Gabby shared this tip on TikTok, and it went viral for good reason. It's brilliant and brilliantly simple. Swain revealed how brides can ensure that their necklace stays in place all day long by using eyelash glue. Now, if you photograph brides, portraits, models, people in general, especially like in studio settings or portrait settings, You have probably had the experience of photographing someone with a necklace that has a pendant on it or some kind of jewel on it, and sure enough, it's off center or it's twisted in the final photograph because you missed it. You missed it when you were shooting. So, of course, we all know the best solution is no jewelry at all. In fact, science has shown us that it is a distraction. And believe it or not, jewelry dates a photograph quicker than clothing does. But the reality is, unfortunately, you will run into clients who insist on the necklace, especially, if it's a gift from grandma, that kind of thing, right? So you can purchase a tube of eyelash adhesive for less than $4. You're not going to, and by the way, links are in the description below the video. You're not going to need a lot of it to get the job done. As I've been talking to people about this over the last couple days, a few people have asked me about removing it once you've put it on. There are actually lots of different ways you can remove eyelash glue. By all means, Google it, you'll come up with a bunch. But my recommendation, because it's not very expensive, is eyelash remover cream. Honestly, that's your best bet from everything I've read and researched. It is super fast, super efficient. And yes, both of these items. Well, I already had eyelash glue in my studio. Actually, I had bunches of that. Did not have the remover. I have ordered some. It is downstairs in my studio. Have not put it to use yet. But these are now both part of my styling cart in my studio, and they will travel with me anytime I'm, shooting or teaching on location. I highly encourage you, if you're shooting people, grab some of that stuff. Make sure that you have it available. Okay? All right. So listen, I have a very quick tip for you this week. It doesn't matter what make or model camera you use. If you're shooting long exposures, use a tripod and do not talk while the shutter's open. You don't want to introduce noise to the image. All right, was that desperate? I know, that was desperate. My favorite part of the show. How can I help you with your photography tonight? I've seen a couple questions go by, but hey, we still got some time. Actually, I got through that in record time tonight. I'm getting this down to a system here. All right, so let me scroll back in the chat and see what we had here for questions. Nick had a question early on. Saw the advice on shooting in black and white, even if the end result is color, or he saw advice about shooting in black and white, even if the end result is in color, so you can better evaluate just the lighting, like highlights, shadows, that kind of stuff, without color information getting in the way. He's asking me, he's not sure, is that a really good idea, or is that just kind of nuts? I'm not going to call it a good idea or a bad idea, Nick. What I am going to say, it is a functional idea. There are photographers that do that will shoot black and white profiles in camera to be able to see the tonal ranges and everything, but with the intent of shooting in color. There are also, believe it or not, colorblind photographers who leave their cameras set on the black and white profiles, and obviously they shoot in black and white because they can't really see the color properly. And if you look at their color images, their use of color is just amazing and bold and brilliant. So it's kind of one of those things, Nick. It is a great idea if it makes sense to you in your mind, and if you're going to commit to it, because at the end of the day, there's a learning curve with it, right? If you take all the color out of your color images and you start looking at them in black and white, you've kind of got to reset your brain because that's not what you're used to. So you need to put some practice in and put a little bit of time in and put a little bit of effort in. But does it work? Is it possible? Is it like a functional concept? Yes. For me, I love the fact that the cameras we use today, especially as a mirrorless shooter, are WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get. So I want to see that result in camera as best as possible. And I've been shooting long enough that I'm very comfortable looking at a color image and understanding what my tonal range is going to be. So I think that for somebody that's been shooting for a long time, and Nick, you've got a fair amount of experience under your belt, you may find it a very challenging process to make a change like that. But is it doable? Yes, it's absolutely doable, but to just go ahead and kind of start it tomorrow, is it going to make your work better or have a noticeable positive impact on your images immediately? No, absolutely not. Okay. All right. Scrolling on down here, I just saw a couple questions come in towards the end. FN89, we be headed to the West Coast at all? Actually, as it stands right now, not until after the first of the year. I will be in Las Vegas, which is almost to the West Coast, in the beginning of March. I'm headed out there for WPPI. I'm not presenting at WPPI this year. I may be doing a little bit of a workshop or photo walk while I'm out there on my own. I have mixed feelings about that. We can talk about that another time. But and then I will also be headed to Tacoma, Washington, also kind of West Coast, right? I'll be doing that in March. I'll be out there for 2 days. A full day workshop, and then also some presentations. So that's what's on the books for now. I would love to do more in California as the opportunities come up, believe me. California is one of those places I never say no to. So we'll see. We'll keep my fingers crossed. All right. Dennis, the best software in my opinion was Tonality from MacFun before Skylum took it over. Oh, but it's not available anymore. Yeah, I mean, Dennis, I didn't use that. I do know people that did use it. I know it got a lot of attention when it was out. Again, it's kind of one of those things, almost any software is going to get the job done at this point. It's a matter of how much effort are you willing to put into the work and how much control do you want, right? For a lot of control, then you need something like a Silver Effects. But pretty much heck, even the Instagram app will do black and white conversions, right? And not bad at all. So I'll be the first to admit there have been times where I've cheated a little bit when I'm uploading an image to Instagram. And even though all my monitors are color calibrated and everything's set up, when I'm looking at it on the phone, I'm thinking, I wish it was just a tad brighter, had just a little bit more pop to it. And I'll give it a little bump in the Instagram app before I post it. Absolutely. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I want my work to always look its best, no matter where it's at, right? So, yeah. Let's see. Yamakawa. I like Silver Effects for its control and zone mapping display option. Yes. I mean, Silver Effects can't say that word enough, but it's all about the control. Especially anybody that, worked in a darkroom and did zone system things and that type of stuff, followed the whole Ansel Adams plan. Silver Effects is going to allow you to manage that kind of stuff so much better. Okay. Anya, nice heads up. Stopped using Nick Collection when Google bought it and the former free version didn't work with the updated Photoshop anymore. Yeah. DxO has actually done a great job with it so far. They've kind of rewritten it, I believe is the terminology they use, rewritten it from the ground up. Tidied up the interfaces a little bit. They have made it a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. It is kind of cleaner to work with. And I will say that it's quite fast, quite responsive. So for me, it's one of those tools. I don't use it every time I make a black and white image. I simply don't. But when I want to make a black and white image that takes me back to my film days and has that film feel, as far as I'm concerned, Silver Effects is the only way to do that with the kind of control that I want. You can add grain in Photoshop and Lightroom when you do a conversion. You can add grain in Luminar. You can add grain in many, not as many, but in many of the softwares where you do the black and white conversions. But for me, if I'm looking for that film feel that I remember from my youth, then yes, Silver Effects is definitely where it's going to come from. Okay. All right. Adam, love that idea of sharing the idea of shooting black and white. Do you ever use any black and white JPEGs? Only as output, Adam. I don't shoot I don't shoot JPEGs in camera. But here's an interesting little tip. Now, this is a challenge, and this we can maybe we'll talk about this next week. In fact, if you guys are interested, I'll make this the topic next week. So let me give you the headline, and we'll go from there. I purchased my first professional digital camera in the year 2000. It was the Nikon D1. Through a combination, full disclosure, because this doesn't make me sound too smart. Through a combination of ignorance, stubbornness, and ultimately stupidity, I shot exclusively JPEGs until 2008. In 2008, and by the way, I was shooting, professionally from day one, right? Making my living shooting JPEGs, not weddings and events, but studio work. In 2008, I started to dabble a little bit more with raw files. And it was predominantly because actually I was working on some fine artwork that I was doing some very high contrast images, but still wanted the shadow detail. And, through reading and research, finally realized I better dig into this raw stuff a little bit. And then by about mid 2009, I was shooting raw files full time. There's a lot more we can talk about there, but here's the piece that I want you all to digest. I'm really glad that I shot exclusively JPEGs for the first 8 years of my professional life in digital photography. It forced me to refine my techniques spot on. And even though now I will gladly take advantage of everything the raw file has to offer, I am rarely in a position where I'm trying to save an image. Rarely. And that is because of the discipline that I built by shooting JPEGs all the time. Okay. Adam also asked, have you found any starting point setup that is close to what you're seeing in camera with your black and white settings? Well, the best part of it is, Adam, if I've done the +3 or +2, depending on what your camera allows, with my monochrome or black and white setting in camera, when I bring that into Photoshop, since I use Adobe Camera Raw, I'm actually going to apply, aside from the color settings, I'm going to apply all the same develop settings that I would to my color images, meaning I'm going to pull the highlights down, probably about 40 or 50 in that neighborhood. I'm going to push the shadows up 20 to 40 somewhere. I'm going to pull the blacks down 15 to 25 in that ballpark. And it's going to look pretty much exactly like what I saw in camera at that point. That's the goal. So, and that's kind of one of those things. If you're exposing your files consistently, right? Now think about that. Exposing your files consistently. So depending on what you're shooting, I could be in a studio one day, I could be out shooting a Little League game the next day, I could be shooting abstracts out in a field somewhere the next day, all these different things. But the fact is, if I'm exposing my files consistently, my starting point for my develop settings is always going to be pretty darn close. It's never exactly the same, but it's going to be pretty darn close. Every so often, yes, there's going to be an extreme variation. There's no one size fits all in any aspect of photography, right? But yeah, you'll find that your starting point is going to be very similar across the board, regardless. Okay, Anya, I hope you're happy. This has been 3 weeks of my life, all because of your question about black and white. But seriously, I'm glad you asked the question, and it's actually been a great topic to talk about. Anya said, I also love your abstract work. Are you planning to make live content about it too? Maybe down the road. Right now, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm making some money off the abstract content. I do have a presentation that I do similar to the one that I did for Murphy's, and I also do an abstract photography workshop in person. And I've got quite a few of those booked coming up. So I'm not going to put too much free stuff out there, but I will tell you, Anya, if you go back on my YouTube channel, and I apologize, I don't have my YouTube channel. In fact, here, wait, I can get my YouTube channel queued up. If you go back on my YouTube channel to the beginning of the pandemic, actually, so let me show you how you're going to get to it here. Browse, all right. So if you go to my YouTube channel, at the top of the page, not the search bar up at the top, the YouTube search, no. On this little menu at the top of the page, click the magnifying glass, right? And type the word stuck. Whoops, it would help if we spelled the word stuck properly. Just type the word stuck, right? And hit enter. And you're gonna get all these videos here from the very beginning of the pandemic. This is from like the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. The Stuck at Home Photography Challenge. And what I did in the very beginning of the pandemic to keep myself really busy and try and help people out and give them a distraction and improve their photography at the same time, I created these videos daily, and it was a daily challenge of things to photograph. They're mostly abstract images. So the cool part about those videos is, and some of these images are images that are in my abstract presentation, in these videos, you see the behind the scenes of how I created all these images. So there's a whole series of them. There's like 12 or 15, there's at least 15. There we up to number, yeah. So there's like 15 different videos. I did it for just over 2 weeks. So, and they're all but I think one is abstract images that you can take a look at. So that, that will hopefully help give you a little bit of an idea there, okay? Adam mentioned also love seeing you're using a variety of software. Yeah, you know, Adam, look, I'll be really honest, and I totally get it. I was of the same mindset that a lot of people are. Like, I want that one camera that's gonna do it all. I want that one piece of software that's gonna do it all. And unfortunately, that's just not where the world's going, right? So, you know, we can complain about it or we can get the job done. And so for me, yeah, at this point, I use lots of different pieces of software. As I mentioned, I primarily use Photoshop. However, more and more and more, I find myself working in Luminar Neo because Luminar Neo's got some great features and it allows me to do some things that I can't easily do in Photoshop. I could do them in Photoshop, but they're a lot more work, right? In Neo, I can do them in a couple of clicks. So I've kind of really evolved in the sense that, look, I'm going to use the tools that will provide me quality first, always quality first, but then provide me efficiency and also options in terms of creative, you know, potential, right? Let's see. Philip, you like the noise joke. I'm glad. Thank you. That's a section that I may or may not have in every week, but I have a little template that I work on as I'm putting the show together. And it's like, I got nothing. And then I remember I saw that joke. I was like, yeah, you know what? That's advice. Let's put it in there. So, let's see. Gabe, obviously I shoot low ISO, but see, Gabe, you haven't been coming to my meetings in a long time. With mirrorless cameras, man, stop worrying about ISO. Raise that ISO and have fun. But his question is, will aperture have a dramatic impact on black and white quality? Aperture is not going to impact your black and white quality at all, and any different than it would in color, right? So, and again, Gabe, you disappeared for a while. I hope you've been busy, and I hope all has been well. But here's the analogy that I give people, right? Part of the challenge that we have is that as an industry, the photography world, we're teaching photography the wrong way today. The whole conversation around shutter speed, aperture, ISO, base ISO, exposure triangles, all that crap, that's old. Exposure triangles were never a thing in the first place. You all just need to let go of that. I've talked about that before. It's a huge joke. I will dedicate one of these last frames to it in a couple of weeks. But here's the thing. Here's what you need to be doing, Gabe, especially if you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, which I think you are. Choose your shutter speed with purpose. Select your aperture with emotion. And then make it lighter or darker with your ISO. So I want you all to remember that. Shutter speed with purpose, aperture with emotion, ISO makes it lighter or darker, period, right? And I'll tell you what, I will, probably not next week, maybe the following week, I will dedicate an episode to breaking that down and talking about that a little bit more, okay? There he goes. He's been out traveling, working out of retirement. Good for you, man. And working with an R5. So indeed, don't be afraid to raise that ISO, Gabe, okay? You need to figure out what your ISO tolerance is. Come back to one of my meetings and you'll learn what that is. Or in a couple of weeks, I promise to come back on and I will give you all a little bit more detail about the blasphemous thing that I just said about the exposure triangle and this whole weird concept that I have about using purpose for shutter speed, emotion for aperture, and ISO being nothing more than a lighten or darken control. Okay? All right, gang, we're out of time. Thank you for watching. I do hope sincerely that you have found some value in what I shared tonight. Next week, I promise more cool stuff. And of course, another shoot breakdown along with the last frame Q&A. If you can't make it to the show live, leave your questions in the comments below. I will answer them next week. And if you haven't done so yet, please hitting a thumbs up helps more photographers. That's that Apple thing that they just started. How cool is that, right? It helps more photographers find out about the show. And remember, folks, you don't get back the days that you waste. There's the button. Sorry. So please go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. Hashtag do the work, gang. Adios.